The amazing Erika Kirk seems to come with a timeline that has people doing a serious double take. According to conflicting biographical details floating around, her birthday has been listed as both November 20th and November 22nd, because apparently even one birthday date wasn't enough to keep the story simple. Then there's the Charles Barkley connection. One version of her childhood story says that when Erika was only 5 years old, Barkley coached her at the YMCA. And that's where the timeline gets even more interesting. Barkley was already deep into his NBA career around that period, making the claim sound like one of those wild celebrity connections that instantly gets people talking. If the story is accurate, that's one seriously unexpected crossover between an NBA superstar and Erika's early years.
I started playing basketball when I was 5. My first coach, he was Charles Barkley, of all people, which is amazing to have as your 5-year-old YMCA coach.
Sure, Jan.
Erika Kirk, according to the way she talks about helping others, she just loves to pour into people. It's become part of her whole vibe. And that little phrase,
I poured into him, just being able to pour into each other this weekend. Thank you for taking the time to pour into my husband. You can still pour into it, but you have your babies, people around you that will pour into you, that pouring into your family, and priests pour into me, where they can be poured into. So you pouring into each other, pour into her, into the situation is probably like the best thing, just to have someone locally.
Not only does Erika enjoy pouring into people, but she also seems to have a real talent for ideas that get everybody talking. Take the decision to reportedly recreate a scene connected to her late husband's death, where fans could take pictures or the outfit she chose while apparently trying to present a more serious image. Whether people saw those moves as meaningful, awkward, or straight up questionable, they definitely got attention. But one of the biggest eyebrow raisers was the name of the Make Heaven Crowded tour. Coming after her husband's death, some critics could easily hear that wording and think, wait, was that really the best name? Of course, the phrase is generally meant as a Christian message about bringing more people to the faith, not literally suggesting heaven is running out of room. Still, given the timing, the name was always going to hit differently for some people. And then there's how the tour itself has played out. Some stops have reportedly been canceled, and Erika hasn't appeared at certain events where people expected her to show up. While digging deeper into the controversies and questions surrounding the tour, I stumbled across one detail that caught my eye. And let's just say, on the surface, it doesn't look suspicious at all. And for anyone who didn't catch the sarcasm, let me make it crystal clear. I stumbled across something that looks seriously shady to me, and we need to talk about it. Hello, everyone. If you're new here, welcome. And if you're a returning viewer, welcome back. Now let's get into what caught my attention. So let's talk about the Make Heaven Crowded tour, because the very first stop already had people asking serious questions. If you've been watching my channel, you probably remember that the tour kicked off at Harvest Church in Riverside, California, where Greg Laurie appeared as a guest speaker. Now, Laurie has long-standing ties to the Calvary Chapel movement, a network of churches across America. And keep that connection in mind, because Calvary Chapel is going to come back into this story later. But Laurie's appearance at that first tour stop drew controversy for another, much more serious reason. At the time, lawsuits had been filed involving allegations connected to abuse and trafficking in Romania. Reports about the litigation have named Laurie, his church, and other parties, with plaintiffs alleging they were complicit or otherwise legally responsible. Those are extremely serious allegations, but they're still allegations being fought over in court, not established facts simply because they appear in a lawsuit. With that distinction clear, you can see why Laurie's involvement with the child trafficking became a major point of controversy. But that's how the Make Heaven Crowded tour kicked off, with controversy already following it in January 2026. Then February rolled around, and instead of things cooling down, another dispute hit. The tour was scheduled to stop at First Baptist Orlando on February 25th, but that appearance was ultimately canceled following backlash over the event. According to baptismnews.com, quote, A campus pastor at First Baptist Orlando has been placed on administrative leave, and a worship leader reportedly has resigned because they opposed the decision to host Turning Point USA's Make Heaven Crowded tour. The Florida mega church is one of 32 stops on the revival tour that mixes Christian nationalism with Christian evangelism. TPUSA was founded by the late Charlie Kirk and is now led by his widow, Erika Kirk. The nationwide tour has been roundly criticized for using churches to promote MAGA politics. So this wasn't some tiny disagreement happening quietly behind closed doors. According to that report, the controversy reportedly reached church leadership itself, with one pastor being placed on administrative leave and a worship leader reportedly resigning after opposing the event. Ultimately, the Orlando stop was canceled, and references to that particular stop were reportedly removed from TPUSA's website. Whatever side of the political argument you're on, that's a pretty dramatic amount of turmoil surrounding one scheduled tour date. Although, the Wayback Machine has a funny way of keeping receipts when web pages change. Fast forward to April, and Erika Kirk made an appearance at the Pastor Summit in Grapevine, Texas. Now, this wasn't officially part of the Make Heaven Crowded tour. It was a separate event hosted by TPUSA Faith, where Erika reportedly delivered a speech. But here's where things get a little strange. Looking through the TPUSA Faith YouTube channel, I could find videos featuring plenty of other people from the event, but I couldn't find Erika Kirk's full speech anywhere on the channel. That's especially noticeable considering she actually appeared and spoke at the summit. Maybe there's a simple explanation, but when seemingly everyone else gets uploaded and her entire speech is nowhere to be found, that's the kind of detail that makes you look twice.
Count it all joy. Being persecuted and lied about, count it all joy. You're being slandered, count it all joy. You're being lied about, count it all joy. Your church is being persecuted, count it all joy. If there's graffiti all over it now, count it all joy. You have people coming in and out of your congregation, count it all joy.
It almost looks like clips from Erika's speech were strategically left off the TPUSA Faith YouTube channel, but without confirmation, we can't say for sure why. What we do know is that clips circulating on social media drew plenty of criticism, and some viewers definitely weren't feeling the delivery. Take this clip, for example. Erika tells the audience what she presents as a real story from her own life, but she's reading the details from a sheet of paper while delivering the message with some serious intensity. Then she tells the audience to count it all joy. The contrast between the personal story, the notes in her hand, and that forceful delivery is exactly what had people online talking. Like I said, this event wasn't actually part of the Make Heaven Crowded tour, but I'm bringing it up because Erika's speech got a pretty rough reaction online. Critics described parts of her remarks as word salads and non sequiturs, arguing that her points sometimes jumped around and were difficult to follow. Then there was her delivery. Some viewers zeroed in on the intense glares and facial expressions she made while speaking, while others felt her attempts to come across as relatable just didn't land naturally. Of course, that's subjective. Different people can watch the exact same speech and read it differently. But for her critics, the combination of confusing remarks, intense expressions, and what they saw as forced relatability became a major part of the conversation. So just 1 week later, on April 29th, 2026, Erika was scheduled to speak at another Make Heaven Crowded tour event, this time at Prestonwood Baptist Church in Texas. And after all the chatter surrounding her previous appearance, people were watching closely to see what she'd say next. But when the event arrived, this happened. Erika didn't show up. Now, to keep this fair, Erika isn't scheduled to be a guest speaker at every single stop on the Make Heaven Crowded tour. But at several stops where she was reportedly expected to appear, those appearances didn't happen.
Hey everyone, I'm sorry I'm not able to physically be with you tonight. I am taking some time to be with my family, but I wanted to at least send you a video to just really let you know how grateful I am for all of you and for your support with our TPUSA Faith Make Heaven Crowded tour. We are so blessed to have such a phenomenal team, and you all are so blessed to have Jack Graham as your pastor. But there's a lot going on right now in this world. The noise at this point is palpable. And after Charlie's murder, I, like many of you, feel like a revival broke out. And since then, the enemy, the devil himself, I feel as if he's unleashed all the demons all over the place to hijack this revival. And I had a friend of mine tell me, they were like, can you imagine once you get to heaven that the devil is like this little gnome that like hides under a bridge, like this little thing, and you in your head thought it was just like this. I mean, obviously he's awful, but the context of that really put it into perspective. And, you know, I find myself quite often just saying out loud, even to the enemy, what God has spoken, hell cannot and will not silence. And we are promised that if God has commanded it, no force of darkness can ever stop it. You can war against it, you can mock it, you can try to bury it. But if God said it, good luck. And that's the sentiment that I think all of us should have at this point. But I can promise you the revival will continue to rise.
She also reportedly didn't appear at the July 7th, 2026 event at Living Stones Church or the August 5th, 2026 event at Dream City Church. Instead of seeing Erika in person, audiences were shown a pre-recorded video. And that's where the online conversation took another strange turn. Some viewers began debating whether the video itself might have been AI-generated or digitally altered. There's a big difference between online speculation and actual proof, though, and without reliable evidence confirming AI was used, that claim should stay exactly where it belongs, in the category of internet speculation. Still, the fact that people were even questioning the video added another unusual layer to the controversy surrounding her missed appearances. What do you guys think? Does that video look AI-generated to you? My first impression was that something about it looked off. I obviously can't say for sure that it's AI without actual evidence. But when I compare it with Erika's other teleprompter speeches, the delivery and overall look feel noticeably different to me. Usually, Erika's speaking style comes across as very stiff and intense, with these long, serious stares into the camera. But in this pre-recorded video, strangely enough, I thought there was more warmth behind her eyes and a softer energy overall.
Hello, everyone. I wish I could be there with you tonight. I'm really grateful that you came out to be a part of the Make Heaven Crowded tour. This night is about one thing: lifting up the name of Jesus and creating space for people to hear the gospel clearly. And across the country, we are seeing churches gather with a shared purpose, and it is amazing. It's to proclaim the truth of God's word, to call people to repentance and faith, and to believe again that Jesus Christ is still transforming lives today. And even though I could not be there with you tonight, you all are in great hands with the team that is with you. They're phenomenal. We are so blessed to have them. And my prayer is simple: that the Lord would move in a powerful way tonight, and that hearts would be open to the gospel, and that many people would leave this room forever changed by Jesus Christ. Thank you for being a part of Make Heaven Crowded tour. God bless you all.
That's what made me wonder whether something had been digitally altered or generated. Again, that's just my impression, not proof that the video is AI. There could easily be another explanation, from lighting and editing to a different camera setup, or simply a different delivery that day. But I genuinely want to know what you guys see. Do you think the video looks AI generated, edited in some unusual way, or completely normal? Let me know in the comment section down below. Now, I want to move on to something much more serious, because while I was going through the individual dates on the Make Heaven Crowded tour, researching the churches and looking into the people who were speaking at these events, I noticed a specific pattern that caught my attention. And this is something I think deserves a much closer look.
Isn't it amazing that she sees her husband brutally murdered and she doesn't start a riot? She doesn't start a protest. She doesn't somehow try and tear down other people or tear down the government. What she does is she starts a series of worship services because she knows eternity is more important than anything that goes on here right now. And she wants people to know that the way you get to heaven is to trust in what Christ has done because he lived the perfect life in our place.
And do you guys remember the questions that started circulating after Charlie Kirk's memorial? Some people online wondered how organizers managed to secure such a massive venue on short notice and put together an elaborate, pyrotechnic-filled political rally. I mean, memorial. That led to rumors that the venue might have been secured in advance, with some people going even further and suggesting that could imply foreknowledge of Charlie's death. Now, that's an extraordinary claim, and I haven't seen credible evidence establishing that theory as fact. A huge event coming together quickly might raise questions, but by itself, it doesn't prove anybody knew about a death beforehand. Still, that whole debate came back to mind when I started looking at the timeline behind the Make Heaven Crowded tour. We've been told that this tour came together after Charlie's death and essentially grew out of what happened. The public narrative has been that his widow, Erika Kirk, chose not to respond to her husband's death with anger, but instead decided to channel her grief into spreading her faith and continuing a broader mission. But once I started digging through the tour dates, venues, and connections, I found myself asking a similar question about the timeline. Exactly how quickly did all of this come together? So that's been the official narrative, and maybe that's exactly how everything happened. What do I know? But while going through the timeline, I noticed something that caught my attention. And the quick side note, there's an account on X that recently posted that Nisi be noticing. And listen, that's true. Nisi do be noticing. I do be noticing things, okay? At this point, I might need to put that on a shirt. But here's what I noticed, and I want to be careful with this because dates lining up does not automatically mean the events are connected. It could absolutely be a coincidence. I'm open to that. I'm simply going to show you the timeline and let you see why August 27th, 2025 jumped out at me. On August 27th, 2025, TPUSA announced that the American Comeback Tour would make its first stop at UVU. That same date also appears on a FARA-related filing drafted by Brad Parscale concerning proposed advocacy work on behalf of a foreign principal. And August 27th is also the date associated with an outreach effort involving Travis Carey, a pastor connected to Calvary Chapel, Greater Portland. Now, those three things happening on the same date does not by itself prove coordination or some larger connection.
Good morning. I just wanted to speak into the controversy that sadly has really been circulating and been getting a lot of steam. The term that is continuously being used as an allegation against both the city of Portland and us as a church concerning this Make Heaven Crowded tour event on May 15th. The term you keep hearing is bait and switch, that there was some sort of guise that it was only going to be on the surface a Calvary Chapel event, but all the while we had this intent of being deceitful and it really being a TPUSA faith gathering all along. It seems the best way we can do that is just share the timeline. You know, I was always told, and I think it is true, that clarity is charity. Let's just look at the timeline of what happened. So a few emails that went back and forth that began in August, and it was in August when the Lord really moved upon my heart in a time of prayer and fasting for our city, that God would do a mighty work to the lost and the hurting and the addicted. And in August, I reached out to the city of Portland. So I'm going to read the original email that I sent to a nice lady who's in that department. I said, "Good morning. I just spoke with a nice lady in your office. She gave me your email address. I left a voicemail yesterday as well, just trying to seek what steps are involved in renting out your space for one night outreach in the community. I serve as the senior pastor and this non-denominational church in Westbrook, and we have seen our community grow quite fast over the last few years. Both myself and my wife are former heroin addicts. We currently lead an addiction ministry at our church. Our hope would be to offer a night of praise and worship and be a source of hope and encouragement to the city of Portland community. We'd love to do live music, offer food, be available for prayer for anyone who would attend, all with a free admission. My first thought was Fitzpatrick Stadium. However, I know this may be a tall order based on availability. This fall would be ideal," I wrote, "especially around the Halloween holiday. However, we're open to suggestions. If you could follow up with me concerning this proposal, I'd be greatly appreciative. Thank you for your consideration. Grace and peace." So again, you take note that email was on the 27th of August, 2 weeks before Charlie Kirk was murdered, long before we as a church partnered with TPUSA Faith for our monthly gatherings, and almost 4 months before the Make Heaven Crowded Tour was even officially birthed and launched to the public. I also had this exchange later on as me and this lady went back and forth, and we really begin to zero in on a date on the 26th of September. I had reached out. I said, "Just want to let you know that Friday, May 15th seems to be the best option for our team here at Calvary Chapel. No need to hold the Saturday option any further. We're very excited to host this one-night gospel outreach and live music and free food." I said chips, cookies, sodas for those who join us.
But the overlap caught my eye, especially because Calvary Chapel has already come up elsewhere in this story. There was controversy surrounding Carey's outreach effort, and rather than put words in his mouth, here's a snippet of Travis Carey addressing the situation himself. So just for a clarification, Pastor Travis Carey decided he wanted to organize this outreach program, and on August 27th, 2025, he reportedly emailed the city of Portland to get the ball rolling on planning the event. That's where the timeline starts getting interesting to me. There were a few details in the video where Pastor Travis Carey addressed the situation that really stood out. First, Travis describes the church as non-denominational. At the same time, he serves as a senior pastor there and publicly expresses evangelical Christian beliefs. Now, those two things aren't automatically contradictory. A non-denominational church can absolutely hold evangelical beliefs. But I think that distinction matters here because understanding exactly how the church identifies itself, what its leadership believes, and what networks it's connected to becomes relevant as we keep digging into this story. So that was the first thing that caught my attention. Now here's the second thing, the type of event Travis Carey was planning, and more importantly, the timing of it. According to the August 27th, 2025 email, the outreach event was originally supposed to happen sometime in the fall, around Halloween. But by September 26th, 2025, Carey and his team at Calvary Chapel had reportedly landed on May 15th, 2026 instead. That's a pretty significant jump. They went from discussing an event roughly 2 months away to choosing a date about 8 months into the future. Now, that doesn't automatically mean there's anything suspicious about the change. Permits, venue availability, logistics, or other practical issues could explain it. But it's still a detail that stood out while I was following the timeline. So what exactly were they planning for May 15th, 2026? According to the email sent to the City of Portland, it was described as a gospel outreach event featuring live music and free food, including chips, cookies, and sodas. And that's where I had another question. If we're talking about a gospel outreach event with music and some basic refreshments, why did this particular event need to happen somewhere other than the church itself? Maybe there's a straightforward reason, but that's the next part of this story I wanted to understand. I mean, just look at the size of the church. It's a large 2-story building with a huge parking lot. So if the original goal was simply community outreach, why wasn't that space enough? Inquiring minds would definitely like to know. Instead of holding the event at the church, Travis Carey contacted the city of Portland and secured space at the Portland Expo Center, a significantly larger venue. Now, do you notice what I notice? Because what immediately caught my eye was the scale of that venue compared with the event described in the emails. We're talking about a gospel outreach event with live music, chips, cookies, and sodas inside a massive expo center. Of course, outreach events can be intentionally held in large public venues to attract people who wouldn't normally visit a church, so the venue size alone doesn't prove anything unusual. But here's where the timeline takes an interesting turn. The event apparently didn't remain just the originally described outreach gathering. Calvary Chapel later partnered with TPUSA, and the Portland Expo Center became the venue for a Make Heaven Crowded Tour event. That doesn't prove the larger tour was secretly planned from the beginning, but given the timing we've been discussing, it's definitely a development worth examining. So that's why some critics started accusing them of pulling a bait and switch. What began as a gospel outreach event was later connected to a much bigger TPUSA faith tour stop. And the large venue had already been in motion months earlier. According to the timeline we've been looking at, that planning process began on August 27th, 2025, about 2 weeks before Charlie Kirk was killed. Now, timing alone doesn't prove foreknowledge, secret coordination, or anything else. Maybe it really was just a coincidence. Maybe TPUSA, Faith later needed a large venue and happened to connect with a church that already had one lined up for an outreach event featuring live music, chips, cookies, and sodas. That's entirely possible, okay? But when dates line up like this, people are naturally going to ask questions. Maybe every piece of this has a completely ordinary explanation. But in the words of Miss Erika Kirk, and that's where I'm going to leave this one. I'm not saying these overlapping dates prove some secret plan, because they don't. A coincidence is still a very real possibility, and without stronger evidence, that's an important line not to cross. But when you put the timeline together, the early venue planning, the outreach event changing shape, the Calvary Chapel connection, and the venue later becoming part of the Make Heaven Crowded Tour, I can understand why people have questions. So now I'm throwing it over to you. What do you make of this timeline? Do you think we're looking at a bunch of unrelated coincidences that just happen to line up in an interesting way? Or is there something here that deserves a closer look? Keep it respectful, but let me know what you think in the comments, because I genuinely want to hear your take. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, share it with someone who might find this story interesting, and drop a comment down below. It really helps support the channel and lets me know you want more deep dives like this. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.